The game of the games, Juve
Derby Italia.
Inter, known as Derby d'Italia, this season first against second, and we have Juventus in a really good run with 5 consecutive victories. 4 of them with only 1 goal margin. So if you look at the table, you might think that they are destroying the teams, but far away from this. On the other side, we have Inter, in my opinion, the best team in Italy, 6 consecutive victories in all competitions. We saw Di Marco scoring the goal of the season probably in the last game against Frosinone. And perhaps, Danny, we are seeing a similar game as the one we saw last season between Juve and Napoli, where Juve arrived with a very good record, but it was a bit not real, I would say, and then they got destroyed. Perhaps it's
Yeah,
the case,
remember
because
that.
I don't see Juve this strong as the numbers show us.
Look, last year is a good comparison. Last season, Juventus went on the back of 8 consecutive clean sheets, went at the Maradona. Napoli scored 2 early goals, and the game finished 5-1. But Napoli were flying at that time in Serie A. I don't know if Inter has reached that peak just yet, but certainly this game is a clash of two styles. Inter are much more expansive, they are much more entertaining, they score more goals than Juve, they score 10 more goals in Serie A. Although they play with the similar system, 3-5-2, Juventus try to play with a lower block, tends to defend much more deeper in their area and try to play a little bit more direct. But last season, Juventus, playing that way, managed to win both games in Serie A against Inter. Inter were slightly in crisis, and also the Coppa Italia games were very, very close. Both teams have got 8 clean sheets in Serie A. Only Nice have got 9, done better in the 5 major European leagues, and they always scored the first goal in every single game they played. Inter, Juventus only 1-0 against Atalanta. So again, it is really, I think it's going to be a game of patience, especially for Inter. Inter need to avoid the mistakes they did last year when they were on top in Turin, but they left themselves exposed to the counterattacks, and as well they need to avoid the mistakes that some other teams, for example Fiorentina, when they recently played against Juventus, did, putting too many crosses into the box, rushing it. They need to be really, really patient. Of course, if Inter scores the first goal, it could be a high-scoring game. But you need to take into account a couple of variables. First of all, this game comes on the back of an international break where there are players, especially the South Americans, who travel a lot. And I look at Martinez, who didn't play much for Argentina, Bremer for Juventus, they're gonna Sanchez for Inter as well, although he's not gonna start. Plus all the other team players involved in European clashes that have been away, so there's not been a lot of time to prepare it. Both teams have got a few injuries to deal with. Inter are going to be without Pavard, Bastoni, Quadrado, maybe Aslani. Juventus is going to be without 𝐬𝐿. They're going to be without Danilo still. Locatelli is a doubt. So they're a little bit depleted, really. So it could be a cagey one. It could be a game that is a slow burner. Often these games in Serie A are like this. And I think last year Napoli was an exception, really. Juventus at home have got a good record as well. They only lost 3 games in 2023 to Monza, to Napoli, to Milan. Napoli and Milan both defeated 1-0. They're going to go with Chiesa and Moise Kean. Vlahovic is not in great form. Kean will be asked to try and screen Çalhanoğlu to do a little bit more defensive work. Chiesa was in great form with Italy, but they play with a different system, which I think makes the most of his characteristics. Inter, we know how they're gonna go with it, but yes, the moment maybe the team is a little bit short. The longer it goes, the game, of course, the more happier Inter are gonna be with the result, I think, because a draw will suit them, will still keep them 2 points ahead of Juventus. Having said that, it's very difficult to call. I'm going to go for an under, 2.5 goals, 180. I really can't see many goals in this one, but careful, because you might want to bet in play. If Inter scored the first goal in the first 10-15 minutes, it could be much more entertaining, of course.
But it looks like a cagey one, Danny. We saw 2-3 weeks ago, maybe the Milan Juve, also very cagey, should have been a goalless draw. At the end, Juve won by a...
But if you look at the games Juventus played against top sides this season, very cagey against Milan. They didn't really go for it. Atalanta, they played for the 0-0. When they went to play against Milan, until Milan had 11 men, Juventus didn't really push it, and the goal was a lucky deflection. Against Lazio, they did better at the beginning of the season. They won 3-1. But again, they played very direct. They were very, very clinical. Inter, on the other hand, yes, they beat Milan 5-1, but Milan were stunned by Inter capacity of moving the ball really, really well. I think Juventus are not going to make the same mistakes. For me, it's a 𝐬𝐭𝐤 or under 2.5 goals.
Perhaps you mentioned that Inter would be happy with the draw. I believe even Juve could be happy with the draw. Both
yes, no, but absolutely, because if Inter wins, they goes +5, and it's a huge gap. If Juventus stays in touch with Inter, they got the chance, of course, with Inter playing in the Champions League, of them dropping point. And also, let's not underestimate that in January, Juventus are going to spend and going to invest. They need to strengthen a team that so far has been without Fagioli, Pogba, for different reasons. So they need to get at least a midfielder and a creative player. There's talks of getting Højbjerg or Calvin Phillips or even Jadon Sancho. I don't know if they can afford him. Whereas Inter teams is pretty much set. They're not going to invest. So Juventus can get better. So yeah, the closer they stay, even 2 points, 3 points margin, considering Inter qualifying for the next round of Champions League, the better. Of course, if the gap opens +5, yes, I think we can talk about Inter. Not say securing the Scudetto, but really putting down a mark. By the way, there is a software in Italy, today there was a newspaper said Inter Scudetto 84%.